Microgons from Dog Hoggler is a vaporwave themed 1v1 strategy game wherein players fight to the death of their king, with various little tokens as well as the titular Microgons, who are they're kind of little hero chaps, apart from you can't say that because then people will start calling this game Hero Chess, and you can't just start putting hero in front of things to make them other things, because that doesn't work, except for in hero shooters, which are an exception to the rule that I don't want to talk about today whatsoever. Vaporwave, when dissected, is about 10% mathematical logic, 20% elevator music, 40% leopard skin, 10% classical architecture and sculpting, and about 30% melted cyber jazz. It's a bit me as well, but I don't really think memes can be quantified. Much like chess, the game is almost entirely skill based. All attacks hit. All moves are defined by strict rules. There is some randomness at play, however, because the maps themselves are spawned in procedurally before you decide which of your chaps or chapettes from your team are going to make the cut into your final four to go on and fight the enemies, of which you get a sneak peek at the 6 that they'll be selecting their 4 from as well. There's 24 of the little blighters to choose from. They're all unlocked from the start. If you want, you can double up or triple up, quadruple up, quintuple up, and the other one after that. If you want, I don't know why you'd want to do that. For one, you'll struggle against other humans, what with their ballsy earthling tactics, if you try and do that. Each of those units have their own health, their own ability, their own damage levels, and their own moves, which tie into diagonal movements or straight line movements. So they're a bit like rooks and bishops in chess, although each can only move a set amount of tiles in that direction, in that movement. The abilities of each of the little units are diverse. Some can shoot almost the length of the battlefield, like snipers. Others can poison any unit that they're next to. One can kind of spooky ghost teleport across the map and damage anyone that it passes through. Another can supercharge itself so that on its next turn it can just zap across the map, damaging the enemy it hits. And if there's another enemy behind it, they take a kind of spark of damage too. Some have more classic magic type abilities, so Frostus can do a big ice magic and Frias can do a big fire magic. There's also Big Bad Bat Helper who can heal, and also a little chap who can revive, if you can store up enough of the points to use the abilities. Each of the little scrappers' abilities have a mana value to them, ranging from 1 up to the revive at 4. You get 1 of those points a turn, although ability costs can be kind of negated slightly. You can drop them by 1 if the unit is controlling a blue tile, of which there's a couple normally on the map. The green one meanwhile heals. So if you do get your revive token on a revive tile, it will only cost you 3 ability points, which is still admittedly 3 turns worth of waiting in order to do that, but it can be a long game sometimes. That can be very useful. So functionally it's quite a simple game really, but then so is chess, so are war games, grand strategy games when it boils down to it are quite simple as well, and most things that people declare too bloody hard to master are actually quite simple as well when it comes down to it. It's just a matter of perspective. So imagine it's 7 PM, dusk. You've got all your little characters all lined up and ready to rock and roll. You've excluded the least favourite of all of your favourites, and the map's already been drawn out. You can then lay out your units, and at this moment you get introduced to your last few little so-and-sos who make up your elite fighting force of things trying to kill another group of people's king who are trying to kill your king. These new units are the port. I don't think I can say that without getting restricted on YouTube now, actually. They are the shrimps. Now, because each of the maps are procedural, the extent to which you can lay out your units, which must be along the back line, is quite diverse. Each of your little heroes, or world warriors, whatever you want to call them, then gets 3 of these little shrimps laid out in front of them. If there's any crossover, then rather than creating duplicates, they get powered up instead, up to level 3, which affects their health, attack, etc, etc. Get the shrimpies to the other side of the match, and they become super shrimps, who, like in chess, gain extra movement dimensions. They can suddenly bounce back and come back towards your base, or move around and flank things if you so wish. Each turn you get to take 3 actions. You can move a unit to the full extent of its movement if you wish, and if possible you can drag them into an enemy in their path to get an attack on them. Alternatively, you can take just an attack or just a movement. It all results in just using up one of those action points. Finally, using a character's ability also counts as an action point. So a move, attack and ability use from the same unit can cost 2 or 3 AP depending on how you do it. If you've already got the little snipey chap lined up, however, you might take a pot shot with their ability, that's just 1 AP. Alternatively, you might use 2 actions to move Sneaky Assassin Poison Boy and his full 6-tile diagonal move into the very heart of the enemy's nest, and then deploy the poison ability and poison the king and all of his mates standing around him, and just wait outside the battlefield, for them to all just poison and die and stuff, which is a kind of coward's way of doing it, but it's pretty satisfying. 3 moves a turn simply doesn't seem like much at first. The fact that you've sometimes got as many as 17 units on the board at once, ignoring the units who can clone themselves and the turrets you can't control, it certainly makes that number seem a little bit weak. But this is a slow and tactical dance, a game not just about the diversity of the Microgons that you can choose from, but about how you can take pretty much any team with a little bit of skill and timing and score the win. There's a ridiculous effort clearly gone into the balancing of the game, and while certain tactics work extremely well as exploits against the rather weak practice AI, it certainly won't work against humans who have the savvy to reprioritise on the fly. They'll be able to see that you're trying to flank around and take out their king, and they'll be able to move and reposition, whereas sometimes that AI that you're practicing against just doesn't seem to be aware that you're clearly lining up your sniper, or clearly trying to move the poison guy in, or you've just been grinding up the little guy that gets tougher and stronger with every punch, so that you can just drop him into the enemy base and just take out that king in one hit, which is totally doable if you know how to play the system. Back to the game's presentation, that vaporwave theme that I was talking about earlier, it works fantastically in this game. The game feels like some pulpy 70s or 80s TV show's idea of how space rulers will fight for dominance in the future. It does lack a bit of flair, the game. I found myself waving the camera around myself, zooming in and out and spinning around as I won matches, or as the king detonated as I scored that final hit. Small things like that, small tweaks like that, just showing off and flair, etc. Not even quality of life stuff. Hopefully that's the kind of thing that will be added as the game continues along in its life. That, and maybe things like player titles, purely aesthetic things as you rank up in the multiplayer rankings. And I know I've been talking a lot through this, but during those brief moments where I haven't been talking, have you heard the music playing out in the background? It's absolutely bloody sublime. It's like being stuck in a game's loading screen back in the mid-90s. So, outside of those little ranks from ranked multiplayer, there's no progression or unlocks. There's no loot boxes or skins for the little Microgons or for Shrimpies or for the king. There's no silly hats even at the minute. But that's a-okay, because we kept playing Ski Free back in the day. We kept playing Slay. We kept playing through the basic shareware versions of Doom and Elfland, and we kept bumping up the difficulty on Minesweeper. We kept doing that endlessly back in the day without all of that stuff. We just needed to get the taste for the game. Microgons, even at the minute, as it is, from what you can see here, which is definitely, worthy of being called a finished product, but even this, from what you can see, which might seem very minimalist to you, it gives a great job of giving away that little taste. So, tweaks and the future potential of more little hero champions aside, this game is about as close to perfection as it needs to be to do what it needs to do. As a matter of fact, it's a damn tidy little strategy package, and easily the best game called Microgons that I've ever played.